Hello and welcome back to Raised by Giants, where we talk all things spirituality. I'm Ryder Lee. Tonight we have guest Matt Reed. But before I introduce him, Raised by Giants is on Rokfin. Go over there and sign up for a free account. All of my content and all of the other creators' content, you can sign up for Rokfin premium content, which is less than a YouTube premium account, and you'll get my premium uncensored content when it gets released, and all of the other content creators premium content as well. Check the link in the description to sign up for the video streaming platform Rokfin. Also, if you would like to make a donation to help the channel grow and produce more content, you can donate on PayPal or buy me a coffee to help support my work. It is 100% completely optional, but is unfortunately the only alternative other than monetizing my channel. And we know what happens to channels like this when monetization gets involved. And I want to keep this channel. I like you guys. So if you can donate, I very much appreciate it. No donation is too small. And thanks to everyone that's donated so far. I appreciate all of you for your more than generous donation. Check the links in the description for donation options. Thank you. So without further ado, introducing tonight's guest, Matt Reed. He started out as a scientific and spiritual skeptic, but learning of the mysterious unknowns at the edge of modern physics, he decided to dig deeper. He began using shamanic plant tools to discover the answers to his questions, and encountered a wide range of astral landscapes and interdimensional beings who offered their insight. Matt has collected his experiences and thoughts in a collection of journals titled Unseen Dimensions, Journals of an Interdimensional Traveler. Hello, Matt, my friend. Good. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you a lot. How are you doing?
Ryder, I'm doing great, man. We are flying the light fantastic. I am just so happy to be here on your show, dude.
Well, I'm excited to see where this conversation goes tonight here. And Matt doesn't have a camera on the device that he's using, so that's why he doesn't have. He can't see his face, but it's okay. We're gonna keep rolling with it. But I kind of wanted to start this out with, how your journey began and what got you in the beginning to write your book, The Unseen Dimensions, Journals of an Interdimensional Traveler.
Totally, dude. Well, just living life, I knew something wasn't quite right. I had that classic experience where your dad says, well, you know what, life isn't fair, and that's just the way it is. And that's honestly what got the ball rolling, to tell you the truth. Because even as a kid, I thought, well, why isn't life fair? What's the bigger picture here that's going on? So then from there, like a lot of other people, I was kind of atheist. Well, technically grew up Catholic, shifted over to being atheist, went back to trying to be Christian for a little while. The whole guilt program started to kick in and everything. And then I started to study the Bible a little too closely, where the pastors were having trouble answering my questions, like things like, is harnessing the Christ as a blood and body sacrifice offering, is that in alignment with the golden rule? And why would God kill people? Why would God have chosen ones and other humans are unchosen? And the whole thing just seemed like a big mess. So that sort of just led down this trail of it's really cool, as when going on this path in life, as we start to seek the sort of bigger answers, it's as though life seems to deliver to us like exactly what we need right when we needed it, sort of whether you like it or not. So sometimes it was a little bit in your face, like, oh, wow, okay, this is really what's going on. So then from there, one thing led to another, and I continued to seek, scientifically, got super deep into physics, for fun, but just to sort of get a handle on, what's going on in this physical world that we live in. hit up against some boundaries there where certain things are off limits. If you start getting a little too close to the Planck scale, the math starts to break down. So that ended up also being a sort of another signpost for me along the path, that science doesn't have the full story, or at least our mainstream science that the public has access to. From there, I just was talking to a friend of mine about, I just feel like I can't find what I'm looking for in science, in the religions. And this good buddy of mine said, hey, you know what? I think I got something for you. Maybe you should try out just sort of intuitive meditation coupled with psychedelics and entheogens. It's not just a party drug. If you're going in it with intention, you're going in it with purpose, and with discipline, you can actually, really get in there and get a firsthand look. So one thing led to another. I ended up with a great deal of DMT and psilocybin, and there you go. That one thing led to another yet again, and now we've got this book.
Yeah, you brought up something really interesting in there, which is the guilt and shame that religion puts on people. And I think that that's done on purpose to us, right? Because that's how karma is created. Karma is created from guilt and shame. It's a self-imposing system, right? And religion is a big proponent of that. Sin, that's what sin is feeling guilty and feeling shameful over a decision that you've made. And they have these lists of rules that you have to live by and do things by, when real life isn't that black and white. There's variables to everything, and depending on the situation, the person, it's going to be different. There isn't a individualized system within religion other than what they portray it. They say, oh, well, it's a specific relationship with God. That's how they downplay it to justify some of their misdeeds. And I think that that's what a lot of religion really is about, is some kind of justification for the bad and the wrong things that they've done. Because if they can just be like, oh, well, Jesus saves me, God will forgive me, then they're absolved. Instead of actually doing the work and taking the responsibility, they just shuffle it off onto an imaginary made up thing.
Exactly. And the ruling class are perfectly aware of our tendency to not want to have to do anything. And we also get in there and we do it, but when the option is presented to most people of like, oh, here, accept this human sacrifice offering and you're good. You can just continue to support the corrupt system. You can continue to be a slave to your masters for 40 hours a week. You don't have to try to overturn any sort of ruling class establishments, or right any wrong in the financial sectors of the world. Everything's just fine the way it is. So that works perfectly for the ruling class. What I think we're dealing with here is essentially from Babylonian times and previous. I've actually been really getting into the Vinca lately, who some of their wealthy families ended up going down south to start Sumer, which is really interesting. And they took their blood magic and their Agrigore gods with them. And essentially, we're in a situation where the world is run by death cults. Whatever flavor you want, they don't really care, just as long as you support the system, you don't ask any questions, and you devote all of your worship to their main Agrigore, who is tied specifically to the war and financial systems in our modern era here.
Do you know who their Agrigore is? I've done some study into the occult term Agrigore, and it's basically a consciousness or spiritual entity that it feeds off of our thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. And when enough people believe in this egregorical entity, then it becomes real in our reality. Is that kind of how you see egregores?
Exactly. You feed the energy and the intention into it. That energy sort of floats up into the thought sort of spectrum of reality and takes on a life of its own. This is also the sort of concept of loosh that Monroe talks about and many others, where our sort of thoughts and our consciousness expressing itself is a sort of living energy. You think of electricity running, and electricity is electrons being forced. They probably have some sentience to them, but it's not really anything more than just, here I'm an electron, here I'm running along a wire. When you get into harnessing humanity's consciousness, you're dealing with a very sort of like exotic energy form that can have feeling or love or hate or anything in between and everything in between. So that type of energy seems to be more valuable than anything like physical gold or anything that we find valuable here in our material world. The loosh, or the sort of sentient energy, seems to be an energy that can feed these egregore entities. Some of these entities that are in the non-physical seems like they are not linked into the natural cycle of life here. So some could say that they are not ensouled, is this term I've heard. They lack that direct connection to source like we have with our souls. So they got to get that energy from somewhere. Otherwise, they're going to starve and they're going to, dissipate over time. So it seems that energy is being used to feed these astral entities. And also, I believe that it's being used to create new realities in that less physical thought realm that's going on out there. So for those two reasons, the loosh seems to be sort of more of a priority to the bigger food chain that is engaging here with Earth than anything else like physical gold or the rest of it. Maybe what's coming in second is genetic material. Free range genetics are very valuable compared to the synthetically lab created genetics, which sort of lack a plasticity. They sort of lack like, making choices. It's a bit more robotic. It's a bit more clunky. But when you can access genetics that have been living through natural cycles for millions of years, that are very close to our planet, still have a very direct connection to our soul and to source, that is another very valuable commodity to that larger food chain. That is only second to the loosh.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of things are in this 3D physical reality is made up egregorically, right? And you can trace that back to everything in our reality is all designed based upon our thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and energy that we put into it. So if you look at it like that, then an entire reality that we live in here on this Earth is all egregorical. It's all made by us, and then you're talking about the energy, the electricity, and I think that's what angels and demons actually are. They're just different frequency. They're waves of energy, because the common theory is that demons are fallen angels. And what is an angel? Well, an angel is an angle, many esoteric and occult researchers always say that, go in the angles, watch the angles, flow in the angles. A lot of times I don't know if it does it, now, but back whenever phones first started, coming out, it would auto correct angel to angle whenever you put it into a text. So when you look at the word etymology of angel, which is ANG, there's lots of different meanings from Sanskrit to Proto-European and, different languages. But the most interesting one that I found, which my friend Paul Knight broke this perfectly down, and I've talked about this on the show with Nina the Mystic. But in Albanian, the word ANG means nightmare, incubus, shapeless ghost who appears in dreams.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Whoops.
And then EL, of course, at the end of angel means God, as we know. So angel means nightmare, incubus, shapeless ghost who appears in dreams as God, right? And my mind was blown. I was like, wow. It's been inverted, and they flipped it
right.
to mean, something completely different. And I think that they are energy beings. And then that's one of the chapters, in your book is about the archons and the archonic beings. What is your feelings and thoughts on the archons, and what are they, and how did they get into this reality?
Yeah, man, here we go. So let me respond just quickly. Some thoughts that came to mind while you were speaking. One thing I got to say in the whole occult realm is I have to voice some frustration. Because I don't like this whole practice of keeping everything hidden, having dual, triple, quadruple meanings to everything. I wish the whole thing could just be very clear and straightforward. Like, yes, this word means angles of light that come from, make their way through the galaxy from the galactic core. And it also means that these are embodied beings that are living, and here's where they are according to this culture, and here's where they are according to this culture. We have to kind of do that work for ourselves as the seekers on the other side. We got to kind of pull up our discernment boots, put on our construction helmet, and really do the work to kind of suss it all out, because it is a mess. And, I believe it's intentionally made to be a mess, to mislead people, to control what people think in the secret society. So even when you get to the 33rd degree, you've just sort of been cornered to feed, their select group of egregores, and you've just devoted yourself to their whole soul cycle, without really telling you the full story. So it is a frustrating realm, and I completely understand for your listeners and for you, for all of us, really, how it can be kind of a pain sometimes. At the same time, that seems to be intentionally done by greater nature to actually provide a deeper lesson, because then we, as the true seekers, we have to figure that all out for ourselves. So I think that is the big idea, coming down from management at the actual top, not the religious egregores who are sort of more in the middle or sort of closer to us down in the lower third. But it is there to grab. It is, we can just barely wrap our heads around it. So I think that is, in that effort to just barely wrap our heads around it, is evolution actually taking place.
Absolutely. And what else would we be doing if it wasn't for that, right? If we already knew everything and everything was clear, I feel like it wouldn't be that great of a reality, honestly. I mean, what would we do? Like I find fuel in a lot of this stuff to, figure it out and realize that everything is coded and everything is like a mystery, right? It's a mystery box, and we have to try and put the puzzle pieces together to figure out the overarching theme and all the agendas and why that they've done this. Like, I don't really know, and I don't really feel, you could probably tell me more, but I don't think that other beings and other realities and different densities on the spectrum experience this kind of experience that we have here, and I feel like that this is actually a really exciting place, and it's where we come to experience such things, because we can't experience it out there on whether you're talking about different levels of reality, higher dimensions, or even other planets, because I do believe that there are life on other planets in our galaxy, physical beings. So, and I don't think that they deal with the same types of things where they are that we deal with here. So it makes us special in that aspect. And I actually, it is frustrating, like you're saying, like having to figure all this stuff out. But I think that that's a part of the process that we kind of have to deal with here. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. That is part of the fun and part of the pain. We always have that theme with everything going on here with this life. It's like, here's the happy part and here's the sad part. Here's the thing that's going to make you feel great. Here's the thing that's going to make you feel super pissed off. That is sort of like, we're being put through the ringer because these are the patterns that go on in existence. So if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That seems to be sort of what I pick up on the situation here. Another thing I'll say is, in my opinion, I am of the opinion that human souls are actually very ancient souls. And the whole, there's a kind of campaign going on that's always like, oh, those human barbarians were so prehistoric, and to be graced with the presence of an extraterrestrial in their flying craft would be like a giant looking down on a minuscule ant. I prefer co-respect. I prefer meeting eye to eye. I don't like hierarchy. I don't like passive aggression. So kind of what I'm getting at here is Earth seems to be a place that spirits go to when they're sick of that galactic crap, of the huge galactic level wars, of essentially being like a jaded immortal, where you're just, instantly creating things with thought. Every one of us is probably a prince or a princess in some kingdom from out there, from the multiverse somewhere. I don't think you wind up on planet Earth unless you've already made your way through all of the other layers to sort of bounce your way down here. And you've sort of thrown your hands up where, like, okay, I can't do it anymore. I want to get my hands back in the dirt. I want to have peace and quiet. I want all of my psychic abilities stripped away because they just keep getting me into a bunch of trouble. And to sort of start again at the basics, to then build our way back to source from that position of starting again at the basics.
Yeah, that's what I try and explain to people here, that if everything is all love and light and everything's perfect here on the planet, then how do we grow? How do we evolve? If everything's all great, I feel like we would be super bored, right? We'd be like, what are we supposed to do? And I think that that's why the Earth is sort of like what you're saying, is like a training ground for us to evolve ourselves and evolve our consciousness. And I think, unfortunately, some species of beings look at us like a playground, or that we're less than, or that we're basically an experiment for them. And it's there's so many different ways to really look at what's happening on the planet when it comes to other entities outside of ourselves. And I kind of wanted to get back to the Archon perspective here, and what are the Archons? Because I've my friend Robert Stanley, which I've had on my show, talked about how he thinks that they were infiltrated into our reality. That back in the Sumerian times of Enki and Enlil, Enki thought that he was, so powerful, and he was this mega god. And there was like this off limits part of the universe. And when he went into this off limits part, which the off limits part is off limits for a reason, and whenever he went there, that's whenever these archons were actually able to infiltrate into our reality. And whenever he came back, they came with him. So do you have any idea of how, and I don't like blaming anything on anything, any illusionary outside source. I believe that
Right.
we are the problem. We are the issue. We've done this to ourselves, but I do think that there are some outside manipulations going on from unseen entities or even unseen humans. So what's your thoughts on that?
No, definitely. It's funny that, we are the problem and we are the solution, with this stuff, when it comes to the blame game, kind of a dance, I see it as a 50-50 split. It's a two-way street. We open up opportunity an inch. These non-physical forces take a mile. We pull that back. All of these non-physical forces come to our aid. So it is a very much a direct feedback sort of a relationship in my perspective. Also in my perspective, I think Ink and Enlil are sort of like modern era embodiments of human personas who are linked to archons. My version of the story, I'm very much into Gnosticism, although I have my own disagreements with the sort of escapism and the nihilism that comes up. Same in Buddhism, but those are my two favorites. I got to give them credit. So my version of the archons is when the main Aeon consciousness in the center of our galaxy sort of the pattern of events occurred, which then resulted in the creation of our solar system. In that process was when the original archons, in my opinion, were created. So I do believe that our solar system, well, I'll say this. I think our planet is for sure a feminine spirit. Our planet is linked to the planet Sophia. Some say that she was Tiamat before, which is currently the asteroid belt. I heard this great story about how when that war broke out that destroyed Tiamat to try to take out Sophia the first time, that the biggest pieces of Tiamat were then joined together using a planet binding plant technology. And that's where the tree Yggdrasil comes from, is actually links to this ancient like vine binding technology that can bring big pieces of matter together to make them big enough to actually spark a planetary core to then become a planet. So Earth, in my opinion, is a sort of resuscitated Tiamat. So here's where the archons come in. When this solar system was being created, and I believe actually when all of reality was being created, I think the archons are not just here in this galaxy. I think this is a fractal circumstance that's going on, potentially. I don't know for sure, but I'm leaning toward that. So what happened, and this is kind of based on some of these archetypal astral experiences that would sort of flow through me like these living movies. And I did sort of intentions to remember everything, would write it all down, and was just doing my own firsthand study via gnosis. And essentially what happened is when this universe was created, the universe of light, this is a finite universe. I believe the multiverse is truly infinite, but each universe has a set amount of energy. Anyway, when this universe was being created, there needed to be a lot of background AI to make all the moving pieces work properly, to run the lights, to pull the levers, to be the little molecular chemical reactions that create the thought and the feeling of love and to go on the adventure, required all of this background AI. You could think of them sort of like the stage hands in a theater production dressed in black. They're always behind the scenes. They're rolling everything into place, but they remain sort of like out of the actual show, out of the limelight. And I believe this is why the Archons are all in these positions of authority, because early on they were put there originally to run things in the background. Over time, what happened is that these forces started to build up resentment. They're not getting to fall in love. They're not getting to go on all of these adventures. So they thought, you know what? Let's just harness all of their energy and create our own kingdoms. Screw them. What are they doing for us? We just have to work for eternity for nothing. So that is this sort of side to the story that's maybe sometimes left out. And so what we see here on Earth, I believe what the Earth, what she is doing, what her sentience is doing, is she's trying to correct these patterns. She's on her evolutionary path being like, all right. Look, we're all sick of all of it. We're all sick of everybody's crap that everybody's doing all the time. Can we start over? Can we all meet in the middle? Okay, I hear you, Archons. I hear you, Yaldabaoth. I never gave you a fair chance. I, as a planetary creator, wanted to create a new existence. And now I'm getting an Archon who wants to create their own existence. That's like Sophia's sort of feedback loop. Here she goes. She creates a creation with all of the things that come with it. So then her creation wants to do the same thing. Say, no, Sophia, I want to go do my own creation with my own set of stuff, just like Sophia did in the first place. So it seems to be this sort of like tit for tat kind of back and forth.
Yeah, it seems like we're really in a dilemma right now, like spiritually, consciously, worldly, physically, we're in this battle right now. And I think that it started spiritually and has trickled down into our physical world, because I personally believe that things have to happen on higher levels in order for it to happen in the 3D physical world. But it really seems like we're at a point right now where it can go either way. Right. And we're at this, we're at this crossroads right now where, we can either take the right hand path or we can take the left hand path. And I don't know which way we're going to go. I'm hoping for the best way. And I guess it depends on your perspective on, what path is better, because that's what I think that the entire reality boils down to, is just our perception, and everything in our perception is only tangible to this 3D physical reality, because that's all that we have to base it off of. And the collective consciousness that's what it's based off of, is this 3D physical reality, and it's only applicable here. So all of our thoughts and our ideas and our beliefs are really only matter in this 3D world. Like, it doesn't matter so much, and it gets less significant the further you go up into different realities and into different dimensions. But speak on the kind of the dilemma that we are in right now as a species on the planet.
Oh yeah. So I'll respond really quickly to just that last thing you just said. That is so true. I have experienced leaving the body, and I was blinded, by this white crystal light in these mosaic realms. They look like sort of endless mosques in all direction. Their walls are alive. You can talk to the walls. Everything's living. You float freely. Telepathy works without even having to try. And my first thought when I sort of ejected and I was out there, I thought, whoa, this is a crazy experience to be blinded with my eyes closed. And some presence there asked me, oh, what is eyes closed? I'd never heard of such a thing. And by that point in time, I was fully out of the body. So actually, I had to respond, you know what? I can't even remember what eyes are. It was gone, man. And I got to tell you, what a relief, all the little aches and pains, all the little anxieties, they were out of there, we got to work through it here and work through it and everything. But I got to say, based on my personal experiences, it's beautiful out there. It's like homecoming. It's nothing to worry about. As natural as the river, flowing down the valley, to tell you the truth. Now to get back to what we were talking about with the dilemma. So I see Earth's evolution on a bigger scale, sort of telling us the story of where we're headed to. So she started out with these gargantuan, like big predator animal herbivores, like big gears and cogs, big biological beings, like getting a feel for being a planet, like building up the atmosphere. And then things get smaller, right? Just like how we develop things, they get smaller, they get more efficient. And what also happens is a softening over time. We start out with these insane exoskeletons, which I believe are relics from the distant stellar past, when created beings needed these exoskeletons to survive the extreme climates and solar systems, and even in outer space itself. Requiring these exoskeletons to not be completely fried by the starlight. These exoskeletons then soften into, it's still an exoskeleton, but it's more pliable. The reptile skin turns into these fine scales, and then eventually turns into mammalian skin with fur, The whole time I'll also give Mama Earth props. Even the gnarly predators, they had to know what it was like to be a living mother. They had to know what it was like to have kinship, to form a team, to survive, right? So she worked those in as well. A beautiful sort of more modern example is the honeybees. So she took what is the sort of insectoid mind archetype and then turned it into these cute little fluffy beings who like to do little dances, and they have little songs that they sing to one another through their wings, and they spend all day frolicking among the flowers and creating sweet honey. So that is her sort of like, okay, let me take this energy archetype, let me bring it into my body and digest that, and to then create this new path, this new manifestation of that energy pattern, to help those super dense energy patterns start to work their ways through embodiments into softer, more intelligent, more courteous, more loving sentience. And that is what her goal is. She dove down into the depths to take on the dense energy, but not to take it on in a fight, but to take it on and like, I'm going to teach you love. I'm going to show you what it's like to have kinship. I'm going to show you what it's like to have a family. And then it's not going to be as easy after having that kind of experience to then go back to the full-on Borg, full-on Archon lifestyle as it once was, because now it's like, oh, well, now I know what it's like to enjoy the smell of a rainy day, and maybe I don't want to genetically manipulate these planets anymore. And, maybe I don't want to rule everybody with an iron fist anymore. So that seems to be the sort of evolutionary trajectory that the planet is going on. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that the planet wants to do something different, right? It wants to change it up. It wants to switch it up. It's experienced all the other experiences, and it needs to go in a different direction. And there was something that I meant to bring up earlier about when you were talking about AI and how whenever the realities were created, they had to have an AI to do the mundane things to keep everything going. And that's what I think source is. I personally believe that source is the source of the simulation. That's what source means. And I believe that we are in a simulation of sorts in organic avatars. And then everyone says, well, you're a fractal of source. You are source itself, fractalizing itself to experience itself, right? Well, then if source is some kind of AI program, that's making everything run, because that's what I think the source is. It's like the motherboard of a computer that's letting everything operate, right? And if source is some kind of AI and we're a fraction of source, then would we not be considered some kind of AI in ourselves? I mean, if you think about it, human beings are the easiestly programmed species on the I think in the universe, right? Like, we're very adaptable. We can adapt to anything. When we're showed, we can do it, and it doesn't involve taking, putting having machinery involved. We don't need really repairs besides like our health. And I think a big part of our health is due to the things that we're eating and the things that we're drinking, but that's another topic. What do you think of us being as some sort of organic AI?
I love that you brought that up, Ryder. That is a chapter in the book. Are we AI is one of the questions I go into and sort of explore. It is a public domain book, so I sent you a link. So the book is free. You can buy a Amazon printed copy, or you can just download the PDF and have at it. Anyway, about AI, I had this old professor of mine who is so amazing. And I talked to him, what do you think about AI, and virtual reality and everything? And he's like, AI is like science, like trying to sound sexy. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really, the name is more mysterious and magical than the thing is itself. In his take of it is what we call AI is just the same old industrialized assembly line as it's always been. It's just been broken into ones and zeros, and it is like if or statements. It's the hand goes here, it grabs, it moves, or it's advanced to the point where I'll pick up on keywords. I will have a bank of sentences to create, and I will seem conscious. Is it truly conscious? Is it truly sentient? I think to be truly sentient, it's more than seeming sentient. I think that is an element of sentience. It's like a layer of sentience, but the full sentience, I believe, comes from a state of being. So if we could start to give computers like biomolecular receptor sites and created like chemical passageways, so that when a certain sensation or a certain conversation is like of a good, happy intent, we start to send endorphins flowing, and the machine actually starts to get a sense of feeling and a sense of being. That is where I think you start to get into true I, or just true organic intelligence, so to speak. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, there is little difference between the two in a sort of like materialistic viewpoint. It's when it comes to like all these other dimensions and a state of being and these sort of more spiritual concepts, do we get into these qualifiers of what would make like full on sentience.
Yeah, and then if you look at how we may be in a simulation, some kind of matrix overlay system that's built out of ones and zeros and ones, then it kind of starts to make a little bit more sense that this whole reality could be being powered by an AI of itself, and we could be in a simulation within a simulation. And then what we're trying to do is actually build another simulation to get even more lost in, with the artificial intelligence, the virtual reality stuff like that. I see that as a simulation within a simulation to get us even more lost in the nonsense and bullshit that we already have to figure out here in this simulation that I already think that we're in.
Yeah, I know it's like a meta paradox, like messing with your head kind of situation. And yeah, I do think it's a simulation. Like the graphics are amazing. Like, oh my God, like atomic scale. What is this? This is insane. It's all light based. You can just keep zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. Like it is a simulation of like such a craftsmanship and quality that it's like, whoa, this is like legit. You know what I'm saying? So I think I was on the sort of kick of like, oh, it's all a simulation. Earth is a prison planet just to harvest our loosh. And I think what's so confusing about the situation is that it's literally all of the above. And that's what makes it so confusing. So it's the organic simulation that's like, the mechanism that started the universe and runs the universe through its whole course and loops it in a cyclical nature or whatever it does. It's like, okay, that is the sort of base organic simulation. And even outside of that, I believe is the multiverse that's filled with countless numbers of universes, and probably new universes are being designed every day. Personally, that is what I think Source is busy doing out there, is helping provide the energy and provide direct feedback on the newest universes that are coming into being. Our core root essences, our so-called higher selves, I would say actually our highest self presides, in my opinion, in the multiverse. If the fractal is truly complete, then each sentience that is able to be isolated into an independent ego is probably linked to isolated independent egos from the multiverse, where each one of us is out there busy working on our universe. And we have a bunch of little pieces of ourself that we have in all of the other universes that are gaining all of this knowledge and wisdom, that are remotely sending that information back to our core root essence to take all of that into consideration as we are designing our universes out there. That is where I am aiming to turn, is to that core root essence that presides outside of the finite universe. But I want to make friends along the way. I think it's like at the end of the labyrinth, when we make friends with the junkyard lady, we make friends with the Aldebaeos, we make friends with everybody. I think to fight and to put on the demonic faces that they put on is to perpetuate this evolutionary cycle, because they know the end result is peace and love. We all make love. We all do beautiful artwork. It's like we already can see those beautiful things that are in us. It is these forces that are like, no, we can't have that, because once that happens, we lose our hive mind empires. We lose our glandular harvesting genetic livestock planets. No, we lose control, our power. It's all that we have because we've invested so much in it. So we see that archetypal issue boil its way down and rise up on the surface right here, because guess what? It is an indicator of the very same issues going on in the fractal. So we make our way down from the top, we get down here, we get a good assessment of the whole picture, and then we work our way back up, is what I believe is the path. And that is why we are at this crossroads you're talking about, because that force is so desperate to lose even one soul from the system, to feed the system, to continue that cycle of death worship, of the death cult. All of their sort of little black magic tendencies start to really make a lot of sense when you realize what their goal is to stymie evolution and to harness the souls who are stuck in those little isolated boxes. So you start to open up the lid of the box, you start to return to nature, you start to kind of focus on capabilities of empathy, love, taking deep consideration. We're sort of like spelled out to be this like light or dark dualistic beings, but really we're the whole spectrum. we're able to take this into account, take that into account, and oh, and this too, and this too. So here's how we need to approach this situation, right? Like we have those capacities for a reason. Like that is nature. Like, okay, here is what I need, and this is exactly what I need. No more than this, because I don't want to like waste resources, but here is just right to handle this incoming inputs of all of these levels of density, right? How do I take all this in, digest all of that, and then come out the other end while maintaining my sovereignty and not making any soul contracts? It is a tall order. The order is as tall as it is based on everything that's been going on this whole time. You know, I've picked up from the universe before being kind of like, yeah, you know, sorry, this is like a fixer upper. This is like, you know, I had a moment where I was there and I was talking to higher beings. There was even an element of myself that was like a higher frequency version of myself, much taller than I was. It was a red and orange type of world, had very much the look and feeling of flowing curtains in the space. When I was there, my higher self being told me, you know, thank you so much for doing what you're doing on your level, because that frees me up to do what I'm doing on my level. Because then otherwise I'd have to do all of it, you know? And my response was like, well, what'd you leave me down there for? Why do I got to do that one? I don't want to go down there. You know, how is it I can be in this reality here? Everything is so perfect. Everything is so peaceful. There's just unlimited good vibes in all directions. And then down there, it is a mess. And it's like, you guys could probably show up for 5 minutes, do a couple of things, and it would all be better. You know, how do you explain the mistreatment of humanity and allowing that to go on the way that it goes? So some other presences at that point sort of leaned in. Like a galactic council will sort of start to gather as these conversations happen. I don't think it's special to me. I think anybody who goes out there, you're able to maintain your lucidity and your consciousness. It just starts to kind of gravitate and just starts to happen. This other force weighed in saying, yeah, no, it didn't say that. That's like a very human thing to say. It was, I'm paraphrasing, you know, the intention that came from that being was, you know, look, I don't want to start with look either. I hate it when politicians start with look. Okay, so they said, no, there's no good answer to some of the wrong things that go on in the universe. It's bad, and it is bad because there was a lack of attention. Something slipped through the cracks. There was a lack of care. There was a lack of love. There was resentment building up. There was fear coming through. So you end up with things not going great. And honestly, there is no good answer for much of it. Some of these things, they help you in the sense that you do learn from it. You now know where to apply your attention, you know, how to heal it, how to fix it in the first place. But that doesn't really apply when it comes to like torture, or it comes to like, you know, ruling class weirdo creeps doing horrible things to people who are like trapped against their will. You know, those are indicators of like, we got to clean house. We got to, you know, figure out how to cleanse the ruling class and sort of reestablish like an equitable society from the ground up. So they're indicators in that way. But the being at that point in time leveled with me and was like, no, I feel you. Yeah, there's no real good answer to those things. You know, that's why you got to really be on top of it. You got to fix these things. I'm sorry, but we won't show up because every time another like higher civilization shows up, the lower civilization, I'm adding higher and lower. They didn't really put it that way. Whenever the higher civilization shows up, then the lower civilization just gets used to that and adapts to that, and then just waits until like, oh, well, they'll come and save us again, you know, and they don't actually fix the things. They were of the mindset, it's actually better to just go extinct and start over through the natural cycles of nature, because you need to learn how to handle those things as species for yourself, because otherwise you're not going to make it like the long run. You got to get through these phases, and some of these phases are new phases. Like, yeah, you got to deal with these Borg insectoid hive minds. You got to deal with these sort of reptilian infiltrators. You got to deal with secret societies, secret technologies, and government programs. These are all of the things that we got to kind of figure out if we want to keep going, because these are the things that come up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that there's no one's going to come and save us and help us, right? And I think that we've been through this a lot in our timeline of Earth, and we know the time doesn't run linear. It's all happening now. The past, present, and future is all happening now. But just as a reference, we have been at this point many a times, and we've had a reset, like they're calling it, a huge reset several times in our world and on our planet, for several different reasons. And I think it's that exact reason is because they think it's better just to reset the whole thing, and hopefully we learn our lesson the next time around. But that's the problem. I don't think that we've ever learned our lesson. And we keep repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. It's like a little remnant of the dark side, let's just call them, survives from the reset each time.
Yep.
And then it takes a little bit of time, but before you know it, they have a little army after a certain period of time, and then their army grows stronger and their army grows bigger, and then before you know it, they've taken over again, and then we get the exact same thing. Seems like whenever we get to a certain point in our society, it all collapses. It inevitably collapses again. And I don't really know if we're meant to have long, sustainable peace, love, and happiness on this planet, right? I don't know.
Yeah, we get stretches of it. We get those golden eras, and they're beautiful. But it is part of the sort of agreed upon terms between the Archons, between the sentience of our planet, between the human family sentience, the sentience of the sun, and the sentience of each one of the planets in our solar system, that this is the cycle. This is what goes down. Earth, she's down for it. She's like, bring it on, y'all. Let's do this. The sun's like, I'm going to shine no matter what. Let's do this. And here's what we do get are those few humans who make it out the other end after every cycle. And then those are very special individuals because, in my opinion, they've come down from the top outside of this universe, made our way through to come all the way down here into the physical density, gone through Earth being sort of like an extreme alien comic book drama version of the universe's greatest hits, turned up to like 11, and you still maintained your sovereignty. You still found that golden rule, golden ratio, state of being within yourself, within alignment with everything, in spite of everything. Those spirits I'm talking about, like the Buddhas, the Christs, the title of Christ, we're all Buddhas, we're all Christs in the making. So those few that make it out on the other end, then they become sort of, then they're making their way back up. I think a lot of them are just like, later, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm good. I got what I wanted. Peace out. Some of the others, I think they come back, they're like, all right, I want to help because I know what it's like, the Bodhisattva archetype. So I think every time we get a little bit more helpers each loop, and I think every time we get more souls that come out the other end each loop. And I think that we keep doing it cyclically because then it's like a whole new batch of spirits gets a chance to go through this unique experience. So I do think it's ultimately agreed upon. Even some of the horrible things are agreed upon. The ruling class torturers here on this planet aren't as bad as they were on a galaxy level, like a couple 100,000, few million years ago. They're still horrible, but at least it's been reduced down to a planetary scale instead of going on a galactic scale. I think in that way, the higher sentiences and super intelligences are sort of looking at these like, well, we're getting a little gain here, we're getting a little gain here, we're getting a little gain here. I have that opinion because based on one of my out of body experience exchanges, one of them was, just to quickly boil it down, I was kind of asking about like, well, what's the point? What's the point of it? If it's all just going to be about suffering and the pain and everything, because that is a part of me. I kept bringing it up because I'm upset about it. I wanted answers. And they said, yeah, it's funny too, because this presence thought I was talking about the universe. I was talking about my planet, but it thought I was talking about the entire universe. And it replied saying, well, the universe is still resulting in greater good and benefit to the grander reality than it is causing a detriment to the grander reality. As soon as it breaches that threshold where this universe is now more of an issue to the multiverse than it is of a benefit, that is when extinction gets triggered.
And they just completely wipe the entire thing, and they start over. And it's not just on a small scale; it would be on a really, really large scale. And I think that that's an important aspect to really dive into, because a lot of people, they don't realize how the dark and the light works here, right? The dark and the light actually works together. It works in tandem here, and the dark's role is to test, right? The dark's role is to make sure that you don't give your power and sovereignty away to illusionary outside sources, right? So they'll dangle some dark stuff in front of you, some dark tests to see if you're, going to go down that path. And the light's role is to see how much love and compassion you bring to the table when pain and suffering comes your way. But what most don't realize is the light side also tests you with love and compassion as well, to see if you'll put someone else first before yourself, right? Are you going to jump into a lake not knowing how to swim to try and save someone, right? Or are you going to jump into a sinking sand pit to try and save someone when you know that you're going to go down as well, right? So they test you on your love and compassion for your other people to see if you would actually sacrifice yourself to save someone else. And that's how the light side works on that scale too. And I think that people sometimes confuse the two because they both work in the exact same way. They're both tests. And I think when people think, oh, it's the dark side testing me, it's these evil entities that are testing me, it might not necessarily be the dark side. It could be the light side just as much as the dark.
Absolutely. And I've also found, it is such a balancing act, right? Because, I grew up in a way where I would put everyone else sort of ahead of me than myself. Like I would do more for other people than I would do for myself. And that's another pitfall that life here will show you. Like, are you overextending yourself? Are you spreading yourself too thin for the sake of other people and not offering that same love and care to yourself? That's one of these elements of, I'm not crazy about any mainstream religions, but one of the little nuggets of intact truths that I feel very strongly about is the golden rule. I think it's just so simplistic. It's so straightforward. There's no strings attached. I think that's why they put it in dogmas, is because it is so good. It's like, well, this has the golden rule in it. We'll go ahead and listen to everything else that's put in here. It's great bait, right? Spiritual bait, but it by itself is pretty awesome. treating others the way you would treat yourself, loving them, which also means loving you. Like it's got co-respect built in. It's got like energetic balance built in. And another thing I've stumbled across is I believe that the spiritual concept of the golden rule and the physics concepts of the golden ratio or the golden mean, also known as the Fibonacci sequence, are actually different versions of the same thing. And it has to do with your energetic exchange efficiency. So, you know, people will throw around like the golden ratio, like it's the special thing. But what is so special about it? That was something I forever was like, okay, great. The Fibonacci sequence. What's the big deal? What's so special about it? And a way I explain it is if, you know, when you're on a roller coaster and you go over one of those smaller hills that's just big enough to lift you up out of your seat for a moment. The golden ratio is a spiral where you are lifted up out of your seat the whole time. So that entire application of that initial energy is spiraling out at the most efficient angle. That is why planets orbit at the golden ratio, because that is the path of least resistance. That is why a snail grows their shell in that shape, because that is the least amount of energy required to fill up the biggest amount of volume. So then you go back to the golden rule. Well, it's like my emotional exchanges with people. I want to reduce the friction. I want to take the load off. I want to lighten the road, lighten the load for myself and for those around me. I want to raise up my circle. I want to raise up my community. I want to raise up my humanity and my planet. So those, I believe, are these good sort of energetic physics. And personally, for me, that's enough spiritual wisdom for me to work with here. And it's also worked when I've been out of body. I think that's enough. Then we can get into like the duality stuff. So when it comes to like you're saying, the good, the evil, the love, and the fear and the hatred, I think an important distinction that comes from Tibetan Buddhism is so we have the original source, and then we have the original wrathful deities. And the wrathful deities are the ones you're talking about, where their purpose is to test you and to pry you and to throw obstacles in your way to strengthen you. There still is a little bit of source in those wrathful deities where they're kind of winking at you, like, oh, you're going to figure this out. It's like you're playing a video game and there's always just this one way to defeat the boss every time. It's still being kind of nice to you. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I'm so much stronger now and more confident. And I feel, I figured these things out. Like that's what's up with those paintings of the wrathful deity with the like 1,000 arms. Like they hold a spear because they're teaching you to look ahead, see an obstacle, use the spear to take that obstacle down before it actually gets to you. Wrathful deities holding a knife. The knife is used to cut off a scab so that you can get over that past wound and start healing faster. That is the sort of, we could think of as the light dark side, right? But then there is another spectrum of the dark side that is purely predatory and purely parasitic, which is like, I don't really have a lesson to teach you. Actually, I just want to be sneaky and harness your energy and consume you without you realizing it, because that's really easy for me. That's a really easy meal. So that is when like the school of hard knocks comes in, and we have to sort of lay down the law. We have to put up the energetic barriers, and we have to really like, that is where we've got to, I wouldn't say fight, but we've got to push to maintain our sovereignty, get those energetic suckers out, those vectors in our lives where we know the energetic suckers are coming in through. We have to put those energetic vectors aside to keep our energy protected, because these sources, that they will take an easy meal, just like we see in nature. You see a little runoff from someone's garden and you'll see countless bugs, a crow, some other birds, getting a drink, and then it's dried up in 5 minutes and all the animals leave, right? So any place that there's a foothold for energy to be taken as a free lunch, something's going to take it, unfortunately.
Right. They're taking advantage of us and manipulating us on scales that we can't even see and harvesting our
And that
energy.
is another layer of the lesson.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on my show and speaking with me. I very much enjoyed the conversation. I had a really good time with you here tonight. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, man. So I've got an old YouTube channel, Sophia Zozo. It's not that big, it's got some fun stuff on there, so people can find me there. People can email me at philosophiazozo@gmail.com. I can send these links to you so you can throw them in the bottom. I'll also send you that link for the PDF so people can snag up the book and take a peek. And then I've also got a link to the Amazon book if people like to have a book in their hands.
Thank you. All of Matt's links will be in the description of this video. For everyone else, thanks for watching and listening. Much love to everyone in the chat. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel out in the YouTube algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notification. The links to my channel on Rokfin is in the description. Sign up over there and hit the follow button for my premium content. Also, you can catch this episode and any of my other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. You can download them on Spreaker.com directly to your device for free. Links are in the description. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep loving your heart for everyone. Stay safe out there. And if you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. See you guys next time.